Hello learners. In today's video, we'll try to understand the YCOM movement because in this year we are going to celebrate the 100 years of this particular movement. There are many key aspects for this topic. See, in this video, we'll try to understand briefly about the movement, key personalities involved, and a very important question whether state can intervene into the religious matters or not. Because this particular movement has inspired further on for many such caste-based discrimination to be addressed by the state, and many a time state has intervened in this matter. So this is a positive aspect. Also in this video we'll try to analyze what are the negative aspects if state involves. Before getting into the topic, as I always say, you should understand a particular topic's relevance in different subject matters, or where do you exactly place the subject. Definitely I know that you'll go and intervene into the GS1 topic, but it's very important that I'll show you how there can be a question we're taking as an example in the GS2 as well. In our GS1 directly they can ask you regarding the YCOM movement. They'll ask you to discuss the significance of the YCOM Satyagraha in the context of India's social reform movements. We know in our modern history aspect how this particular movement or how the socio-political movements are very important in both prelims and mains perspective. And how did it contribute for the eradication of the word untouchability? I'm not saying the word, but in the social practice, untouchability, how this particular movement has helped to eradicate this particular aspect. And next, very important, we know that in modern history, key personalities are very important. They'll ask you to examine the role of Periyar E.V. Ramaswamy in the YCOM Satyagraha. How did his involvement shape the future of anti-caste movement in South India? See, whenever there is a caste-based discrimination or a caste-based issue, we directly try to think, our mind directly goes to northern part of the country. But in southern part as well, maybe fortunately in today's scenario, the level of atrocities, caste-based atrocities has come down in the region. But back then there was a very caste rigid, very caste driven hierarchical structure present. So how that particular aspect has been addressed and how that particular aspect addressed so far has come down in today's contemporary. There will be a timeline. First there will be an issue. Second, the address of that issue is very important. And today how exactly the region is there regarding that particular discrimination or that particular issue. This kind of timeline, that means in present scenario, whatever is happening, there will be a past or a history associated to that. So in the same way, how this particular movement, how this personality has helped to eradicate the caste things in the region. Then in GS2, how it is important. In GS2, how can one ask the question? There can be a question like critically examine the role of state in addressing social injustices entrenched in religious practices. This is where you give an example of YCOM movement in a one-liner saying that when back then there was a restriction for the lower caste people or the backward class people in the entry of the temples. This is kind of promoting inequality and social injustices. So to address that, state has intervened and passed an act, or to counter that kind of movement, state has come into the picture. In that kind of examples are very important. Next, in the context of Indian constitution, discuss the delicate balance between secularism and state intervention in religious matter. Support your answer with the recent judicial verdicts. Recent judicial verdicts. We know triple talaq ban. We know hijab controversy in Karnataka. So how the judiciary has involved, how the state has involved with the recent judgments. Before giving the recent judgments or the judicial verdicts, you need to have a past some kind of examples. That is when YCOM movement will come into the picture, and also the temple entry proclamation. Then, do you think judicial intervention in religious practices such as Sabrimala case contribute judicial overreach? Critically analyze. So this kind of questions can be asked in the GS2. Next, discuss how Articles 17, 25 and 26 Constitution empowers state to address social evils while protecting religious freedoms. And a very important question over here, you try to answer this after we analyzing this particular topic in the video. How can social reform movements like YCOM Satyagraha inform contemporary policy making to tackle caste and gender-based discrimination. So how that past movement has influenced or inspiring for the present today, for the contemporary policy makers to address this particular aspect. Try to answer this question. Now we'll get into the topic. As I told you that it's been 100 years the movement has happened. It has taken place in 1924 to 1925. The whole year the movement has happened to address social injustices and whatever the caste-based atrocities like untouchability and the temple entry restrictions, this kind of things were being addressed with this particular movement. Where in the Kerala, in the present day Kerala, there is a temple called Vaikom Mahadeva temple, and back then this was called, or this was being located in Travancore. We know that how the regions or the provinces got disintegrated and formed in the present day, or got shaped into the present day states. This particular temple, which is located in present day Kerala, people were so caste driven and caste based hierarchical structure was there that the backward caste communities or the so-called lower caste communities were not even allowed to walk parallelly to the temple. So to address this particular indiscrimination, to address this particular discrimination, this movement has taken place. So I said you that there was very caste ridden. Now and all we say Kerala is associated with communism and all. Such kind of incidents are very less comparatively. There will be happening, but comparatively there are less. So Travancore society was been very caste rigid. So to address this severe discrimination and to address this caste oppression, people got influenced by Gandhian principles like non-violence and civil disobedience. They came forward and made this movement successful. Three aspects are important. First, to address the social injustices, caste-based oppressions. Second, the key personalities involved. Third, how Gandhiji's principles got inspired to happen or to take place this particular movement. So who are the key leaders involved in this? Firstly, K. Kelappan sir, who is the leader of our Kerala Pradesh Congress Committee. He is called as Kerala Gandhi. See, this kind of questions are very important in prelims as well. Next, T.K. Madhavan sir, he will not try to pronounce any community because we may misspell it and there can hurt the sentiments. So just he is the leader of this community and social reformer who mobilized support for the cause. And very key important person, Periyar E.V. Ramaswamy sir, who has been played a very key important role in this movement, and also he played a very important role in Dravidian movement. And as well, our Gandhiji has been involved, or he had a very strategic negotiation happened with Periyar sir during this to have a peaceful resolution. So they are the four people involved in this particular movement. So how did it take place? Firstly, people got fed up with this kind of atrocity, caste oppressions. They came forward and they tried to walk wantedly along the roads of that particular temple. Following that, there was under the name of law and order disturbance, the people got arrested. Then later on, Periyar sir got involved in this particular thing, where already when people involved, they get wide national wide attention has been gained. When sir got involved in 1924 in April, he also got arrested. But this emphasized or this showcased that there was a need of social justice in Kerala. Then after the persistent negotiations and public pressure, they passed the temple entry proclamation in 1936. 1925 itself, they spoke that let people enter the temple. But state got intervened in 1936 by passing temple entry proclamation. This was passed by our Travancore Maharaja. Very important that first people protested is, then the leaders have come into the picture, then state got intervened. So there was a problem, people's protest, leader, which is a political aspect, then the state got involved. So when state got involved, people started getting into the temple. There was no people are allowed. Certain communities are not allowed in the temple and all such. Now, what is a key significant factor of this particular movement? It raised the question that there is a need of social reform, the milestone in the fight against caste discrimination and untouchability. Second, unity across communities. It showcased, India's key feature is our unity in diversity. So when this particular cause, when this particular need has come, when this particular movement wanted people to gather, all across the, irrespective of communities, people participated, irrespective of the regions, irrespective of the caste, people came together and were trying to fight the social injustice. And also very important, Nagamai and Mrs. Amu Swaminathan, such kind of women, brave women, have also participated in the movement, and it has given inspiration for the further or next whatever temple entry movement has to happen, like Guruyar Satyagraha in 1931, and also this particular movement has helped to have temple entry proclamation in 1936. Then very important key feature, non-violence and civil disobedience, where in the Gandhian principles they followed this movement. Now we will address an important question, whether state can intervene. Vaikom Satyagrahas and temple entry proclamation is a very positive aspect. In this question, we'll try to stay balanced and address the pros and cons, whether state can involve or not. Because we'll not get into the politics, we'll just try to address this question in the UPSC perspective. First of all, what is constitution telling if state can intervene or not? In the preamble and article 25 to 28, which are the fundamental rights, are showcasing that state is practicing secular kind of secular style kind of feature, or state will be having a secular nature. In article 25, it is guaranteeing the freedom for you to practice and profess, with maintaining if there is a question of public order, morality and health, state is definitely going to intervene. That is what constitution is saying. In article 26, there is a religious autonomy given to the bodies or the institutes, but with limitations. State can intervene when there is a question of social injustice or a practice where it is really not so okay for the people. Article 17, we have abolished untouchability, empowering the state to address social injustice, to intervene in religious matters whenever there is a question of injustice rooted in the religion. This is a constitutional provision. We could analyze by these statements, by the constitutional provisions, that state should actually not involve in the religious matters, but it will involve when there is a question of morality, public order and social injustices which is coming from the religious aspects. Other than that, we are secular in nature. So what are the arguments that state should involve? Firstly, it will help us to eradicate social evils, like we have eradicated untouchability. In the Sabarimala case 2018, there was a question of equality. Article 14 was being questioned. So state intervened. Next, to uphold the fundamental rights, to uphold the dignity of the individual, state should and can intervene, but not violating under the guise of religious practices. Then to promote reforms and social justice, like state intervened in the triple talaq ban in 2019 because there was a question of the dignity or the question of some kind of oppression against the women. So state has intervened. Next, to maintain public order and welfare. During our COVID-19, there was been restrictions there. Even the temples were closed. In order to, for the public health, state has intervened and put restrictions. So there are some kind of reasonable reasons where state can intervene. This is a pro. Now we will see what are the cons. First of all, violation of the word secularism. Whenever there is an excessive involvement of state in the matters of religion, there will be definitely a question and a backlash done by the people. Then, religious practices autonomy. Whenever state will intervene, it will question the whole constitutional right, article 26, saying that we have autonomous for us to practice. Why are you involving? Definitely there will be a backlash. Then, potential for political exploitation. We'll not get into this topic because in the present scenario, it's a very big, grandly debated, and we very well know, if we know the word secularism in a real meaning, in the real Indian secularism context, we'll very well know the seriousness of this particular thing. So, involving religious matter can have political gains, threatening communal harmony. We'll not discuss about this, so this is a very key important con about it. Then, judicial overreach. When court is also a part, it's an organ of the government. It comes and if it interacts, it is a very, matters of faith. If it is coming into the matters of faith, it is kind of stepping its border. Sabarimala case, pros and cons, both are there. So, the kind of backlashes can be seen when the government or the state will intervene in the religious matters. So, what are the recent involvement by the state? Sabarimala case, both positive and negative things. Triple talaq verdict, mostly it's a positive response. In hijab ban controversy, we very well know how much kind of communal disharmony it got spreaded. Communal rights has happened when state got intervened. But this kind of intervention in this perspective It's like a progressive state wants a progressive nature in the religious perspective. So there's a question like both. Waiko movement is exemplifying that state intervention can address social injustices entrenched in religious practices, but at the same time, state's role is essential to uphold the constitutional values. It should have a balance between religion and reform, religion and social injustices, and secularism and religion. This kind of balance is very important for us to move forward in the society. Thank you.